New Mexico has more than 200,000 Native Americans, 23 tribes, and a significant urban population. Each tribe is a sovereign nation that works on local, state, and federal levels. Their leaders strive to maintain culture and language while making decisions for the betterment of tribal citizens. The state has an agency, Indian Affairs, to support tribes. In January, Governor Lujan Grisham appointed Lynn Trujillo from Sandia Pueblo to serve as department secretary. She brings more than 2 decades of experience working with Native communities to the job. NMIF correspondent Antonia Gonzalez sits down with Trujillo to talk about tribal priorities.
You've been in this new position now for, the last 6 months or so?
About 6 months,
okay.
Yes.
And you've been traveling around the state, meeting with Native people. What's the number one issue you're hearing from the Native community that they'd like you and the state to work on?
Well, there are a lot of issues that our 23 tribal nations here in New Mexico and Indian people would like us to work on. So I hear about a whole host of issues. I think in the forefront has been meeting the needs of tribal communities in relation to tribal infrastructure or their projects that really have been stalled for the past couple of years, such as wellness centers, health centers, roads, critical projects like water and wastewater, and power line extensions. So I hear a lot about those needs. There are other issues that are important to our Native people here in New Mexico, such as the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's Initiative, and the epidemic really that's taking place here across the nation, but in our state.
What specifically is the state doing to address missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls?
So this past legislative session, there was a bill that was introduced and signed into law by Governor Lujan Grisham, which actually creates a task force, of which the Indian Affairs Department serves as to convene the task force. I will serve as the chair for the task force. We'll also be working with other stakeholders, the Department of Public Safety, as well as other members from tribal communities and nonprofit organizations. The goal of the task force is to study the challenges that might exist where there's data gaps, also bring state partners together with tribal law enforcement and our federal agencies as well.
And another issue that's a priority for New Mexico, which includes tribes, is energy and developing energy for the entire state and also looking at different ways, renewable as well. Can you talk a little bit about what it means for tribal communities when it comes to energy?
Sure. I think that, this past session, the Energy Transition Act was signed into law through the leadership of our legislators and Governor Lujan Grisham. And tribal communities really have an opportunity to take hold of their energy sovereignty. And so as a department, we're working very closely with our tribal communities to ask them what is important for them in terms of renewable energy. In relation to the Energy Transition Act, our department has been reaching out to the Navajo Nation and Jicarilla Apache Nation, in particular the 29 chapters that are in the affected area of the San Juan plant closing, to talk with them about the ETA, but also to hear from them about what their concerns are related to that, to the closure, what they might look for workforce development and training, as well as economic development and their own energy sovereignty.
And can you talk a little bit more about what they're, wanting when the closure is coming up? What are some of the things you're hearing from community members in needs of assistance, I guess?
So we're in the really early stages. The first big meeting is scheduled to occur in September. The department has decided to do more in terms of outreach, so we're just now in the early stages of reaching out and setting up those meetings. We've sent letters out to the 29 affected chapters requesting time on their meeting agendas. for their chapter house meetings to present what's happening around the ETA, but also to hear from them what their concerns are, how they would like to see these funds spent, and then get more input from them to better understand the needs of the community and also what they envision for themselves in terms of renewable energy in their own community. So it's really early. We have a lot of work to do, but we're very excited for that work.
Another issue that goes along with energy is how do we balance and how do tribal communities balance, development and protecting the environment and sacred sites that are really important to them. Can you talk a little bit about Chaco Canyon and the state's efforts, along with maybe some of the U.S. lawmakers and grassroots efforts and tribes to protect Chaco Canyon?
Yeah, I think that, there's been a long history, unfortunately, of energy exploitation coming at the sacrifice to tribal communities. We have a new administration through our governor, Lujan Grisham, and our state land commissioner. Really, I think that we are seeing that there's the opportunity to both have energy, sustainable energy in our state, as well as respecting sacred sites such as Chaco and preserving the landscapes that are important to our indigenous people here in New Mexico.
And let's talk a little bit about education. Students, if they're not already in school, they're preparing to go back to school. And education in New Mexico, we have this big case, the Yazzie case, which included Native students and helping Native students better prepare for not only, education now, but into the future. Can you talk a little bit about the state's work in that?
Sure. So the Indian Affairs Department has been partnering with the governor's office as well as the PED. I've been working with Interim Secretary Bob Baroff now to do outreach to tribal communities. We've met with a number of tribal leaders to just talk about meeting the educational needs of their Native students in the public school systems. And last week or the week before, I actually was fortunate to be invited to and attend an education summit that was held at Santa Ana related to issues of public education and really talking with tribal officials, educators, parents about what they would like to see in response to the Yazzie Martinez decision. And I was really excited to be able to participate in the summit to learn more from our tribes and communities about the needs of our Native American students.
And when it comes to education in New Mexico, how can improving it for Native students include more math and science?
Well, I think there's a lot of opportunities. It starts with the teachers in the classroom, and I really want to thank and value the teachers that are there. But, I was watching a documentary actually on PBS, and it followed a number of students who were researching science related topic areas, and it made me think man, if I wish I had that opportunity. And I think that, presenting those opportunities to children in school, empowering them to open their minds that they're capable of studying science and math, and I think getting away from these feelings of I'm not good enough or especially if I'm a girl, science and math is not for me. And I think, being able to have more opportunities, encouraging students to explore those areas is something that we can do. And I think all of us play a part in that. Many people many Native people have various talents, right? And we're very, I think, blessed to live in a state where we have Native people who are talented in terms of their art and our culture, but I think that there are so many other Native people out there who are contributing in different ways, and we have incredible scientists and mathematicians, and I think by having more of those mentors and examples out there, that's one way that we can empower our young people to see that they have other pathways.
And another top priority for the state is the upcoming U.S. Census and how that's going to impact not only all New Mexicans, but it's really important for Indian country. There are a number of tribal leaders who are out there encouraging early information, education, and advocacy for the census for tribal members to take part in. Can you talk a little bit about the census?
Yes, so the Indian Affairs Department, along with other departments, are a part of Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham's Complete Count Committee. There's a statewide committee. There are a number of other stakeholders that are involved in this initiative. As you stated, it's critically important. It's important for tribal communities for two reasons: for funding that we receive, but also for representation. And we, as a department, we're working with our partners to convene a tribal complete count committee so that we can ensure that we are serving as a hub to coordinate efforts, whether it be messaging around census or funding opportunities. We really see our role as a department to help the Pueblos and Apaches in the Navajo Nation where we can, to ensure that our Native communities are completely counted. As you know, Native communities are some of the hardest to count areas in our state, and we really need to ensure that everyone's counted so that we get those dollars that are going to be coming into the state and flowing to the tribes as well.
I recently spoke with Congresswoman Deb Haaland, who is one of two first Native American women in Congress, just about Native women being in leadership roles and why that it's important to have Native women as leaders. And so what is your thought on being in such a position and seeing other Native women in these leadership roles?
I'm really honored to serve in this position every single day. This is probably one of the best things I've done in my life, and to get up every day knowing that I get to be of service to our tribal communities and to our people here is a huge blessing. And to be able to work alongside people such as Congresswoman Haaland, Deb, who's a good friend of mine, we worked on the campaign trail together, is inspiring. I hope that we inspire other women to envision themselves in these roles. I would have never foreseen myself in this position, but I'm here now, and I know that all my life experiences in terms of my career, but also who I am as a Pueblo woman, has prepared me for this, and I'm excited.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Great, thank you.